I stood in the middle of the slime-slick slave auction with a half-empty bottle of fermented firecrab in one hand and a translator frog croaking drunkenly from my shoulder. Next item. One-of-a-kind ZHYLL royal female. Blind, hybrid-born, functionally useless, the auctioneer squawked over the bio-amplified loudspeakers. And I, Cade Mercer, veteran of 4 interstellar wars and exiled from 3 solar systems for creative interpretation of rules, raised my hand. 5,000 credits, I slurred. A chorus of gasps echoed through the amphitheater. Not because the bid was high. No. Because nobody wanted her. She stood shackled in the center, trembling. Her exoskin was a dull gray-green, blotched like dried paint, her limbs jointed awkwardly, head lowered. For small eyes, blind, I'd been told, blinked without direction. Ugly by human standards. Alien. Lost. But her antenna twitched toward me. Just slightly. Sold, the auctioneer croaked. To the deranged poetry addict. The frog on my shoulder groaned. Back aboard the bitchin' Falcon, my junkyard-class starship with personality issues, the blind princess sat on the floor of the med bay, untouched, unblinking. "You got a name?" I asked. No answer. I sighed, took a swig, and tossed a thermal blanket over her insectoid shoulders. "They called me Atara," she said finally, voice soft and brittle. "I'm Cade. Ex-merc. Current disaster. Welcome aboard my trash pile." She didn't laugh. She just tilted her head. "You paid for me." "I've paid for worse," I muttered. "Like spine mods and war crimes." "You're an upgrade." Pause. "Why?" she asked. "Because I made a deal with a war god while drunk in the Gamma Belt. Now I'm cursed to recite terrible poetry before every fight or well, I don't know. Spontaneously combust, maybe." Silence. Then. "What is poetry?" I blinked. "Oh, you're in for pain." The first attack came 2 hours later. A drone swarm darkened the starboard view like mechanical locusts. They screamed out from the black with intent only an ex-merc like me could read, abduct and erase. "Shield up." I barked. "Too late," grunted the ship AI. "They're inside." I stood, cracked my neck, and faced the blast doors. Atara crouched by the engine core, fear and something deeper, resignation, etched in her posture. I flexed my fingers, reached for the sword I never should have kept, and drew in a breath. Time for some Shakespeare. I grinned. Atara tilted her head. I bellowed. "Shall I compare thee to a death by blaster, / thou art more deadly and more desperate." The blast doors exploded. In came the drones, serrated limbs, hive-linked, soulless. I moved. There's a trick to killing machines. You don't fight them. You dance with them. I flowed, ducked, weaved, reciting. "O ancient toaster gods of flame, / I smite thee now, without shame." Slice. Parry. Kick. Blood and sparks. Poetry and violence. A chaotic ballet. And behind it all, Atara watched. Not with her eyes, but with something deeper. After the last drone fell twitching, she whispered, "You fight like someone who wants to die." I wiped the gore from my blade. "I fight like someone who hasn't decided yet." Her antenna lowered. "Why by me?" she asked again. "I'm broken." "No," I said, holstering my sword. "You're blind, not broken. Big difference." Another pause. "Do you want to know what your surprise is?" I asked. Her head turned. "Surprise?" I knelt beside her. "I didn't buy you to own you. I bought you because you're the last of your line. And someone out there wants you dead. Which means..." She waited. "You're important. And I like pissing off important people." For the first time, her mandibles twitched upward. Not quite a smile. But something close. "You're insane. Comes with the poetry." Back in the cockpit, I reviewed the swarm signature. Vostre. That bastard. The neural warden had sent the drones himself. Which meant he knew about her. And me. I looked over my shoulder. Itara stood barefoot in the corridor, feeling the vibrations of the ship through her feet. You're not safe here, I said. Being with me is like flying with a black hole. I am not safe anywhere, she replied softly. But, this ship hums like home. I blinked. And in that moment, for the first time since my sister died, something shifted in my chest. A warmth I didn't expect. Maybe I hadn't bought a broken princess. Maybe I'd rescued a revolution. The ship was quiet, too quiet for a floating coffin held together by sarcasm and duct tape. I was in the medbay, stripping drone plating off my arm and cursing softly while Itara traced constellations into the air with her fingers. She said she could feel star patterns. Said every system had a taste. Why do stars feel bitter near the outer verge, she asked. Probably because the people are, I muttered, yanking a wire out of my elbow. Sparks flew. Verge folk are like fermented armpits. No offense if you're into that. She turned toward me, solemn. You make jokes because you're broken. Wrong, I grinned. I make jokes because if I don't, I'll scream. She tilted her head. Then scream. I paused. Looked at her. Really looked. No, I said. Not in front of someone who's actually lost more than I ever did. She looked away. But her antennae curled slightly. Like maybe, she understood. I dreamed of my sister that night. Not her face. Just the scream. It always ends the same way, me holding the door, her begging me to run. Me choosing the mission. Me watching it collapse. I woke up with my knife in my hand and sweat drenching my back. Itara was already awake. Sitting by the viewport. Your heartbeat changes when you dream, she said quietly. You say names. Hers is always the last one. I didn't ask how she knew. I just sat beside her and said nothing. Until I finally broke. She died because I followed orders. Took the shot. Held the perimeter. By the time I disobeyed, it was too late. Itara didn't offer comfort. She just reached out and touched my wrist. Light. Careful. You disobey now, she said. Maybe that means you learned. I looked at her hand. Clawed. Alien. Gentle. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. An hour later, the bitchin' falcon screamed. Not like a normal ship scream. More like someone hijacked her lungs. Warning, she bellowed. Psychonet intrusion. Mind leech protocol activated. I really don't like this. I stumbled into the cockpit. Static filled the holoscreens. Someone, was trying to override her consciousness. The AI flashed one last message. Vostre is here. Then she went dark. The lights flickered. Itara gasped. Do you hear it? She whispered. What? The hum is wrong. It's speaking backwards. Then the bulkheads pulsed. A ripple of black sludge oozed through the vents, forming insectoid limbs, half-formed faces. Mind leech swarm drones. Time to fight, I muttered. I reached for my sword. But paused. Itara stood in front of me. I know this tech, she said. It was born from ZHYLL code. It will mimic what I fear. Show me ghosts. Then close your eyes. I don't have to. I took a deep breath. Right. Before we die horribly. I raised my voice and roared. Roses are red, I'm full of regret. Try hacking my ship. And I'll punch through your neck. The swarm shrieked. The floor buckled. Then they came. Fighting mind leech drones is like boxing a hallucination. Every strike lands on something, but it's never where you think. They shift, multiply, crawl into your head. So I switched to instinct. I focused on sound. Rhythm. Her breath. My heartbeat. And I let go. Itara shouted something in ZHYLL tongue. A warning. A blessing? I didn't know. But I trusted it. Mid-spin, I sliced through 3 of them. The sludge screamed. Then one grabbed me from behind. I roared, but my limbs were heavy. My mind, slipping. Visions of my sister. Her last scream. Cade! Itara cried. I dropped to my knees. They flooded toward her. And she stood tall. Even blind, even trembling, she screamed a sound so ancient and broken the walls quaked. The swarm hesitated. Then I lunged. Final poem, I rasped. Shall I compare thee to a pulse grenade? Too late, I'm already made of shade. And I slammed my fist into the core. Everything exploded. I woke up on the floor. Bleeding. The ship flickered online with a groan. Itara crouched over me, antennae twitching. You're alive, she whispered. Somehow. I coughed blood. Grinned. Told you. Can't die before the grand finale. She brushed hair, hers or mine, I didn't know, off my face. You're the worst poet I've ever heard, she said. High praise from a blind ex-princess raised in silence. Then she smiled. Real this time. And I saw something I hadn't seen since the war. Hope. For both of us. I stood at the edge of the shattered ZHYLL temple, blindfolded, sword drawn, and reciting my worst poem yet. O cosmic squid of sorrow deep. Tonight you bleed while I don't weep. The ancient weapon core pulsed behind me like a dying star. Beneath my boots, the entire planet hummed with activation codes that only one person alive could speak. And she was standing beside me. Itara. Wearing rusted ceremonial robes she could barely walk in, fingers trembling as she reached toward the interface, her birthright, and the galaxy's possible extinction trigger. Across the chasm, Vostray floated forward. Not walked. Floated. Wrapped in white nerve cords, pupils like machine spirals, speaking not with his mouth but through every wire on the planet. Give me the girl, Mercer, he hissed from a dozen speakers. She is the final sequence. With her blood, I reactivate the code-born swarm. The cleansing begins. I spat. Here's a better idea, suck a meteor. He chuckled, a dry static rasp. You cannot stop what you don't understand. You're a fool with a sword and a curse. Correction. I raised my sword. I'm a fool with a blindfold. His processors paused. Why blindfold? Itara answered before I could. He chooses to see as I do. Voss's smile faltered. The fight started like thunder. I charged in, blind, but not lost. The air changed. Itara's whispered directions guided me like music. Left. Low sweep. Spin now. Each word a lantern in the dark. I moved with her rhythm. Her truth. Voss struck hard. He hit like memory. Regret. Screams from the past coded into blade and sound. I matched him, not with precision, but with madness. Each time I faltered, I whispered a line. My trauma's loud, my humor fake. But try me, bot, I never break. Steel clanged against exotendrils. Sparks bathed the altar. The planet rumbled. And then, he struck true. Through my side. Blood spilled fast. Too fast. I dropped to one knee. He loomed over me, electric fingers reaching for Itara. You could have survived, he hissed. Alone. She stepped between us. I was never alone. Then she screamed her name. Not the name the galaxy gave her. The name her mother whispered once. And the temple answered. Codes flared. Symbols lit the sky. But instead of awakening destruction, they deleted it. Voss shrieked as his limbs unraveled. His mind, coded into the swarm, came undone, reversed, burned by the very language he thought he controlled. The sky wept blue light. Then silence. I awoke in the temple days later. Blindfold gone. Pain like fire across my side. Itara sat beside me, humming. "The melody of stars," she said. "Is it over?" I rasped. "Yes." "Did I die?" "Almost. Again." She smiled. "You bled on my birth altar." "Sorry. That's a Cade Mercer signature move." We sat in silence. Then she touched my cheek. "You saw me. Before anyone else did. Even without eyes." I covered her hand with mine. "You were never ugly, Itara. You were just waiting for someone who didn't mind the shadows." She leaned in. And kissed me. It tasted like cold stars. Later, as we lifted off in the bitchin' Falcon, now half-functioning but loyal, she curled up in the co-pilot seat. "Teach me something human," she asked. "Like what?" "A thing you do after surviving the end of everything." I thought for a second. Then I taught her sarcasm. She tried it on me. "You bleed very artistically." I laughed until it hurt. As we entered Slipstream, I whispered one last poem into the void. She had no eyes, but she saw me whole. The galaxy burned, but I found my soul. I was no longer alone. And for once, that was enough.